On a stilt house on Bantayan Island, off the northern tip of Cebu, a fisherman coils his handline by lamplight and reads the sky before the tide turns. In a city street to the north, a cardboard box, taped and taped again, rides strapped to the back of a tricycle through the first traffic of the morning. In another room, a grandmother lays a table for a family that will not all sit down to it. One chair empty, one phone standing upright, waiting to ring. This is a country of 7,641 islands and some 115 million people, where roughly 1 in 10 citizens lives and works somewhere else and sends home what they earn. The beauty of the Philippines is the easy part. The harder thing to see is how a country holds itself together when so many of the people who love it hardest are the ones who had to leave. What follows is a box opened like Christmas morning, a classroom that trains the world's nurses, a house rising in the province one payment at a time, a boat years from home, and a table finally set full. In Tondo, Manila's oldest and most crowded district, where the low-rise streets run so tight that a motorbike and a handcart must take turns, a box that has crossed an ocean is carried through a narrow doorway and set down on the floor of a single room. It is cardboard, layered over with brown tape and clear tape and tape again at every seam, the corners softened by the freight of a long journey. A child kneels over it with a pair of kitchen scissors and cuts the tape in one careful line, and the flaps lift, and the room leans in. Out comes a can of corned beef, then a bar of chocolate, then folded t-shirts still creased from the store, then a bar of foreign soap that carries a scent from another country, each item lifted free and lined up on the floor like an inventory of love. This is the balikbayan box, the box of the one who comes home, though the one who packed it has not. Filipinos have a name for this kind of parcel because Filipinos send so many of them. The box arrives duty-free by law, and it arrives by the millions each year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, the country's central bank, under its governor Eli Remolona, recorded roughly $37 billion in personal remittances in 2023, close to 8 or 9% of everything the nation earns, a river of small sacrifices measured in cans and coins and folded cloth. Somewhere at the far end of that river, a person stood in a foreign isle and chose each of these things, and now those things sit on a floor in Tondo, while the sender does not. Follow the money the box stands for out of that room and onto the street, and a short way across the old city runs Escolta, once the grandest commercial street in the country, its early century facade still carrying the stone and iron of a richer age above the shop fronts. Here the dollar finishes its journey and becomes pesos, counted out across a remittance counter to a mother, a sister, an aunt, who has come to collect what was wired the night before. The queue moves slowly, and one transaction stands in for millions of them, a signature and a slip of paper, quiet and unglamorous. And it is this machinery that keeps the lights on across 100 provinces. That such a thing became national life was, in part, a decision. In 1974, under President Ferdinand Marcos, who governed the Philippines from 1965 until 1986, a new labor code turned working overseas from a private choice into government policy, an export the country would organize and lean upon for the next half-century. Trace that same money back toward the water it crossed, and the city gives way to Roxas Boulevard, where the land ends in a long bayside run of palms and seawall, and the wide, flat shine of Manila Bay. In the late afternoon, the sun lowers toward the horizon, and the container ships stand in silhouette against it, waiting their turn at the harbour mouth. This is the outward edge of the receiving city, the place where the sea stops being a view and becomes a road, the first road out and the oldest. The bay that carried the box away is the same water that carried its sender away before it, and the two have been travelling in opposite directions ever since, one leaving, one returning, never arriving in the same room at the same hour. Back in the room in Tondo, the box stands empty now, its contents shelved and folded and put away, and on the door of the refrigerator, held under a magnet, there is a photograph of the woman who filled it. She is smiling in a heavy coat, in a winter that Tondo never has. She chose the corned beef and the soap and the folded shirts, and she has not stood in this room in 6 years. Before the light comes up over the city, in a house where the mother's chair has stood empty for years, a grandmother sits a schoolgirl down between her knees and braids her hair for school. 3 strands drawn tight and even and finished with a ribbon. The lunch is already packed in a tin and set beside the door. On the kitchen table, propped upright against the sugar jar, a phone carries the mother's voice from a hospital night shift on the far side of the planet, asking whether the homework is done and the good shoes are clean. This is the Lola, the grandmother. And across the Philippines, it is the Lolas who are raising the children of the women who left to nurse and mind and comfort the children and the parents of wealthier families in other countries. At the University of Santo Tomas, in the middle of Manila, founded in 1611 and older than any university in the United States, the corridors fill each morning with students in white, and a great many of them are studying in order to leave. The Philippines is the largest supplier of nurses in the world. By most estimates, well over 100,000 Filipino nurses work abroad, in the wards of London, the clinics of the Gulf, the care homes of California. The pipeline that carries them there begins in lecture halls like these, where a young woman learns anatomy and pharmacology in English. She knows, before she has sat a single examination, roughly what a nursing contract pays in dollars and how far those dollars will stretch at home. The classroom is a departure lounge fitted with desks. A nation trains these carers on purpose and has done so deliberately for 2 generations. That the lesson is taught in English at all is the residue of an older arrangement. In 1901, a ship of American schoolteachers arrived aboard a US Army transport, the Thomas, and the Thomasites, as the country came to call them, spread out across the islands to raise an English-language public school system almost from nothing, laying a second foreign tongue over the ground on which a first foreign faith already stood. A short way across the old city rise the walls of Intramuros, the stone heart of colonial Manila. where Spanish-era churches and worn plazas and the slow clop of a horse-drawn carriage mark out the 3 centuries that came before the Americans. For more than 300 years, Spain governed these islands and left behind a Catholic vocation of care, the tending of the sick and the old and the dying, kept as a form of grace. And then 50 years of American schooling left the English in which that care could be offered for hire. Faith and fluency, the 2 credentials the global care economy pays the most to obtain, were laid down here, one atop the other, long before anyone thought to set a price on either. The walls hold something still alive, the deep root of an export the country lives on. By the front door of a house in a distant province, a nurse's suitcase stands already packed, zipped and upright against the wall. No one in the house has yet said aloud when it leaves. In Banawe, in the Ifugao highlands of northern Luzon, the morning mist lifts off a valley that has been carved into stairs. Tier upon tier of flooded paddy climbs the slope, some of it reaching 1,500 meters above sea level. Every wall of stone and packed earth was set by hand. Each is held in place by nothing more than the inherited knowledge of how to hold it. The Ifugao raised these terraces and have kept them for roughly 2,000 years, without mortar and without machines, coaxing the water down the slope the way another people might lay a road. The work is so vast and so exact that it is often counted among the wonders of the ancient world. In the low light, a single figure moves along a paddy dike, bent to the season. The figure is old, as the figure almost always is now. The rice here is planted and weeded and brought in by grandparents, because the sons and daughters who would once have inherited the water and the walls are cleaning houses in Hong Kong, pouring concrete in Dubai, standing watch on ships in the middle of oceans. The money they wire home each month is what pays the hands that keep the terraces from sliding back into the mountain. A wonder of the ancient world is held up now by the wages of the modern one, and the 2,000 years and the last 20 are, for the moment, the same stairway. Deeper into the same cool spine of the country, the town of Sagada rests among pine ridges in Mountain Province, where the mist hangs in the trees past mid-morning and the stone paths are quiet enough to hear a rooster 3 houses away. Up here the season is slow and the week is slower, and the calendar runs, in the end, on Sundays, because Sunday is the day the calls come. A house waits all week for 1 hour of it. When the hour arrives, a phone is carried to the one corner of the porch that holds a signal, and a mother in a kitchen in the Gulf or a daughter in a ward in London is suddenly present in the room as a small, bright rectangle of face and voice, asking after the harvest, the school fees, the knee that has been aching. Then the hour ends, and the rectangle goes dark, and the house settles back into the 6 days of waiting that are the true climate of the place, cooler and longer than any weather. Absence here is the ordinary condition, measured out in weeks and answered for 1 hour on a Sunday. Southward, down out of the mountains and into the volcano country of Bicol, the town of Camalig lies under Mayon, whose cone rises some 2,460 meters in a curve so even that surveyors have called it one of the most symmetrical volcanoes on Earth. In its shadow, the rice fields run flat and green, and among them stands the whole ledger of the province's sacrifice. On one side of it is the Sari Sari store, the tiny front window shop that sells whatever a peso can buy in single servings. And by lamplight, a grandmother stands at a plank counter measuring instant coffee, 1 spoon, into a knotted plastic sachet, and a coin drops into a biscuit tin kept for the purpose. On the other side of it is a house, half-built, its concrete columns finished only to the height the last remittance reached, rebar rising bare from the top of each one, waiting for the next payment and the one after that. It is love a family can walk through but cannot yet live in, a home rising one wire transfer at a time, and it has been rising for years. Against a sack of rice on the unfinished floor, a phone stands upright, and the screen lights blue. And a man's face fills it, a father in the steel cabin of a ship somewhere off the coast of another continent, calling home to a floor he has never once stood on. The face in the blue light belongs to a seafarer, and the Philippines sends more of them onto the world's oceans than any other nation on Earth. More than 380,000 Filipino men and women crew the merchant fleet that moves the planet's cargo, better than 1 in every 4 sailors aboard the container ships and tankers and bulk carriers that keep the shelves of distant countries full. And the wage they earn is among the highest a working family in the province can hope for. It is also the most expensive money in the country, paid for in a currency no remittance can ever return: years. At the port of Cebu, in the central Visayas, the gangways run up into the sides of ships as tall as apartment blocks, and a man carries a single duffel bag up one of them, turns once at the top, and is gone for 9 months, or 10, or longer. A standard seafaring contract keeps a man at sea the better part of a year, and when it ends he signs another, because the half-built house needs its next floor and the tuition falls due again in June. A child learns to walk and to read and to ride a bicycle down a dirt lane, and the father sees each of these things, if he sees them at all, as a video sent to a phone in a cabin in the middle of an ocean, watched hours after it happened, in a silence broken only by engines. The boy who now climbs the gangway learned the water first in a banca, the narrow outrigger canoe that is the family fishing boat of the islands, rowed out at dawn within sight of his own kitchen and drawn back up the sand before dark. The distance from that boat to the steel deck of a foreign-flagged carrier is the whole story of the Filipino Sea. The same skill that once fed a family at home now feeds it only from 10,000 miles away, and takes the man himself as the price. On Bantayan Island, off the northern tip of Cebu, the seafarers' wives keep the shore. Here the households are run by women whose husbands exist, for most of the year, as a voice on a poor line and a deposit that clears on the first of the month. And the whole rhythm of a marriage is folded into the few weeks a year the contract allows a man to be home. In a plank-walled kitchen, a wife stands at a calendar nailed to the wall and circles a date some months out, the day the ship is due to dock and the contract to close. And she presses the ballpoint down and goes over the ring a second time, scoring the paper, as though pressing hard enough might hold the date still. Around that one circled square, the entire year arranges itself. The children count the sleeps, the calendar counts the months, and somewhere off a coast with a name the family has never learned to say aloud, A man counts the same days from the other side, waiting for the date that is already circled twice. In Marinduque, a small, heart-shaped island set almost exactly at the geographic center of the Philippines, some 230,000 people keep the unhurried hours of a province the sea has held slightly apart from the rest. For most of the year, the island is quiet. Then Holy Week comes, and the towns put on the moriones, a street pageant in which men and women pull carved wooden masks over their faces and paint themselves into the Roman soldiers of the Easter story, chasing through the lanes the centurion who, in the old telling, was healed and came to believe. The tradition runs more than 2 centuries deep. A parish priest named Dionisio Santiago is credited with beginning it in the town of Mogpog in 1807, and the island has carried it, mask by mask, through every generation since. The masks are cut from light wood and painted with fierce brows and curled beards, and behind each fierce painted face is a neighbor, a cousin, a son who flew in for the week. The planes that land in the days before a fiesta ride lower than the planes that leave. They come freighted with the homecoming gifts a traveler carries so as never to arrive with empty hands. Boxes of dried mangoes and chocolate, and small things chosen in duty-free aisles at 3 in the morning. The arrivals hall fills with people who have counted the months to this and dressed, out of long habit, for a cold that is not here, and the coats meant for winters in other countries come off in the heat of the tarmac. A daughter who has not been held in person for years is held until it hurts. The road home carries them in borrowed vans and packed buses, past the half-built houses their own wages raised, and for a handful of days, the province is crowded with the very people it spends the other 360 missing. In a kitchen that has set too many meals for too few, a grandmother lays the table for the fiesta, and this year she counts the chairs and finds she needs every one. The noodles are heaped high for long life, the roast pig carried in whole, the rice cooker filled and refilled, and the phone that leaned against the sugar jar every Sunday for years lies face down and forgotten on the counter, because the face it used to carry is at the table now, in the flesh, reaching across for the serving spoon. The chair that stood empty at the start of this story, empty through 6 years of it, has a person in it. She is the woman from the photograph on the refrigerator door in Tondo, the one smiling in the heavy coat, home at last in a thin cotton shirt, and the coat is folded away in a suitcase she is trying, for 3 days, not to look at. The homecoming has a date on the far side of it, and everyone at the table knows the date without anyone saying it aloud. The fiesta lasts 3 days. When it is over, the masks will be wrapped in cloth and hung back on their nails, the last of the roast pig kept under a net for whoever arrives home latest, and a flattened cardboard box will be folded down and stored on top of the wardrobe, kept for next time, because there is always a next time. For these 3 days, the island at the center of the country is as full as the country wishes it could always be. On the wall beside the door, a calendar hangs, and one square of it, a few months out, is already circled twice in ballpoint, the ink pressed hard enough to score the paper. On the stilt house on Bantayan, the fisherman who read the sky at the start of all this coils his handline again by the same lamp a season further on. His own son crews a tanker in the Malacca Strait now, and last month's remittance has bought a new net, a bag of rice, and a second lamp for the room where the boy once slept. The box goes out taped and comes back flattened, folded on top of the wardrobe. The terraces are weeded by the old. Some $37 billion a year in personal remittances crosses the water, and every peso of it is somebody who is not at the table. The tide turns. The lamp stays lit.